Hi, colleagues. Megan again, here to do a short little just-in-time professional development video, this time around reading volume and stamina. I'm going to be sharing ideas that could work regardless of the grade level. Obviously, you might need to change some things with implementation so that it matches the age of student that you work with, but I think we'll all walk away with some ideas, some things in our back pocket of ways that we can build reading volume and stamina across our classrooms. One way that I like to talk about reading volume and stamina is to first just name it as productive practice. It goes well beyond just reading a lot of books or reading words on page. It's truly getting students to practice more, to be more productive inside of their learning. One of my favorite charts is from the Professional Text Disrupting Thinking by Kylene Beers and Dave Probst. And as you look at this chart, just real briefly, you could hit pause if you need to look more closely. I want you to notice what it's saying about what increases with just 10 extra minutes of reading a day. Obviously, at the top, you can see the percentile ranking, and that would be directly indicative to test scores. But I go well beyond that. Look beyond that and look at just the number of words a minute that students are going to be exposed to. Think of the increase in the word exposure over the years. This is one of the reasons why we want students to be having reading volume and stamina, because we know that the more that they read, the more exposure they're going to have to literature, to words, and to productively practice all the skills that we're teaching. So with that, I am going to go ahead and just share with you 5 things that we can be doing to increase reading stamina and volume across our classrooms. The first one, and by the way, these would probably work for things well beyond just reading. The first one is considering timer up. And I put this in quotes because when I say timer up, I'm really thinking more of a stopwatch instead of a timer. And instead of saying we have 20 minutes, I'm going to set my timer and we're going to count down, start it at 0, see how far you can get, write down the number, and then start again. This is a great thing to do as a whole class. Keep track of your number, see how we can watch that number grow. Great strategy, really fun, whole class, small group, one-on-one. Second one that I think many of you have probably attempted in different ways is to set a goalpost. So I was reading with my nephew, Bobby, the other day, and he had just he's in first grade, a short little text that he was reading, and he really didn't want to do it. And so I said, Bobby, let's put a Post-it 4 pages in and let's see if we can get to it. Once we got there, he said, what do we do now? And I said, let's put it a little bit further. And it became a little bit of a game, but setting a goalpost and just getting to that goalpost can feel really good for any learner, for all of us, whether it's the end of a chapter, the bottom of a page, the next book. Another one that actually might be another just-in-time video down the road is to think about giving students strategies for starting a new book. We know that a lot of times where stamina and volume are broken, besides the start of the school year after summer, is when students move from one book to a next. Now, in the younger grades, they're doing that all the time. They get more practice with it, but it still becomes an issue. Upper grades, we know that they might finish a book they've been reading for 4 or 5 days, and then it might take a full day to get back into a book. So we could consider some strategies that we might teach students for starting. Some of the strategies that I like, you could teach them to read in the beginning and track the characters' voices. You could teach them to read in the beginning and really track all the setting details to make a movie in their mind. I love actually having students repeat or reread, if you will, page 1 or chapter 1, depending on the level. It's just a nice habit to get students back into and see what details did I miss the first time around. 2 more things I'm going to share. The first one is, we've talked about this in PD before, but remembering that honestly, one of the ways we can support this is before your mini lesson even begins. Set up a prep minute before workshop begins where students are getting all their materials gathered. This is when any book shopping should happen. This is when in primary grades, they can put their books in a stack of what book they might read next. That prep minute ahead of time, whatever your procedure is going to be, is one of the number one ways to support that volume and stamina right after the lesson finishes. This is an example of an upper grade chart that you might show. You'll have your own chart, but find a way to make a little checklist in your classroom or a chart that teaches students the things that they're going to do to get prepared and ready to read. I also think it's important to note that if you've seen the past videos on book shopping, that book shopping does not happen during workshop time, especially during independent reading time. Sometimes when that book shopping is happening and it's not happening before at a different time, students are doing it as a way to avoid that reading volume and stamina. And then last but not least, make an honest conversation out of it. At the end of a day, do a little productivity check-in with your students. Do a little, how did reading go today? Was it at a 1 or was it at a 5? And honor the fact that sometimes it'll be at a 1, sometimes it's a 3. But having students just do a productivity check-in can be really powerful at the end of a reading workshop period. I'll go ahead and just show a little chart that I've made before and used for that. You might use this similar idea or a chart of your own, but or just have students do it, whether they hold up a 1 through 10 on their fingers, whether they write it down, whether they write it on the corner of their page or on a Post-it note. It's just a really nice way to check in on that. So I think at the end of the day, when it comes to stamina and volume, it's so much more than stamina and volume. It's productive practice. And throughout your units, throughout all of your teaching, we're always thinking of ways to build that. But sometimes we need those back pocket strategies when the strategies we have are not working. So I hope that one of these strategies might work for you. Try it. Let me know how it goes. And thanks everybody for joining.